Well, greetings and welcome, everybody. This is the sixth of so far six Stop the Freakout webinars. The subtitle is Lead Yourself and Others Through This and Any Crisis. I'm Christopher Avery, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Responsibility Company. The Responsibility Company exists to change the conversation worldwide about what responsibility really is in terms of the psychology of it, the communication of it, how it works in our mind, and how it doesn't mean more burden and more being trapped, but how it actually means more freedom, choice, and power when we know how to access it. So anxiety is, the responsibility process is triggered in our minds every time something goes wrong, and we enter the process at blame at the bottom. I've got some interesting green screen issues going here. So enjoy the aura, enjoy my disappearing finger. But we enter the responsibility process in our minds at blame, which means every time something goes wrong for every one of us, regardless of age, gender, education level, status level, whatever, race, culture, our minds go to victimization, our minds go to blame and stories, and then if we give those things up, we beat ourselves up for having a problem, and if we give that up, then we feel trapped, which is where responsibility equals burden comes from, the idea of obligation. And it's not until we actually refuse to collude with our mind in staying in these mental states that we get to the mental state of responsibility, which is literally the ability to respond, which is in between stimulus and response, there's a space if we're willing to work it. Otherwise, it's just reaction, no space. So our work is to help people understand this and then help them work it so that they free themselves and they can also lead others to freedom, choice, and power. So since there was a lot of angst produced by this pandemic, we thought we would have some chats with whoever wants to come aboard. And we would talk about what's producing frustration, uncertainty, challenge, angst, problems in your life, and see if we can't help create some new freedom right here. So welcome. Jimmy, welcome. Craig, nice to see your sailing ships. So Damien, you're back. Back from being frozen. Yeah. So tell me what's going on in your mind. So we've been into this thing for what, 2 weeks, kind of, maybe a little different in different places. What's going on in your minds about this pandemic situation, concerns about health, concerns about economy, concerns about boredom, concerns about tripping over each other in our own homes if we're all working from home and have kids at home? Where's your mind at today? Hey, Glenn, welcome.
I think for me, and I posted this in the original, when I registered for it, which, from a coaching standpoint, whether it be responsibility or otherwise, what sort of impacts are we all seeing with the people we work with or our families? I know I love my family, and we're spending a lot of time together right now, which is a good thing, and it's bringing up opportunities. So just what kind of impacts are people seeing, and how are we managing through that? So sort of just repeating what Christopher just asked.
Yeah, well, so one of the impacts you're seeing is being with people that you love more than you're accustomed to being with them.
Absolutely, yes.
And more than they're accustomed to being with you.
That's what I'm hearing from them as well, which I don't know why it's a problem. I'm with me all the time, and I love it.
So I'm reminded of a story from, I don't know, many years ago. I came home from traveling once, and I was being directive, controlling in some way, I'm sure. And my then wife said to me, we manage really well without you. So that was an interesting learning. So Hank, what are you doing about this situation with your family?
Um, you know, we have so many different areas, right? So I have a professional wife who, she and I worked from home together before. But then I have, you know, a high school freshman who is experiencing the joys of high school and being 14 and being now cut off from his friends. You know, we're taking the shelter in place um, concept relatively stringent. He's got one friend that we're allowing him to have personal time with. Um, and then I have a fifth grader again. So just experience all those different things, right? The different ways of how that's being manifested. Um,
Are you talking about the constraints as a family?
we do. We absolutely do. You know, it's been really easy. You know, to your point, Christopher. You know, especially with the boys, for them to hop right into the lay blame and justify and why they do stuff, why they're fighting with each other, why they're on their Xbox all the time, why they're not doing the chores that they've been asked to do. So it's presenting a lot of opportunities to coach them, um, and it's presenting them some opportunities to coach me. So we play the game at home about have to, right? That the have to game, and they are both very forthcoming in calling me out if I use that phrase, which is wonderful.
Nice.
Um, so you know, we're taking that advantage, but we are talking about, you know, what does it mean, especially with the news last night coming out that the United States just passed China and Italy in the number of cases for coronavirus, and how that's a blessing and a curse in our society, right? You know, they were kind of confused as to how that happens, and I posited that China is a communist country. They can kind of tell you exactly what you're going to do, and if you don't, they have the opportunity to place you in a space that will enforce that requirement. Where
Right.
here in the United States, we have the opportunity to
Are you still talking about your
choices.
family, or are we off of that?
So, say that again.
Are you still talking about your family, or have we moved from that? Because
No,
I'm
we're still talking about them. Like there's some confusion for them about how we're responding,
uh,
right? How we're responding to um, the the outbreak itself, and how the United States has got more cases than China, and the liberties that we have as Americans, and the responsibility that goes along with those liberties. So some of those
well.
same things.
So here's what I know.
Sure.
When I saw the first week of the curve, so this is even before there were hundreds of cases a day in the United States, I put my statistics think hat on, and I realized that we were going to be in the many thousands of cases a day very soon. And I'm not surprised at 80,000. And I'm not, I don't live a life of comparison. So, you know, that's how I use that information. It's some interesting awareness, but the fact that the virus incubates for a couple of weeks before it shows up is kind of meaning that that when we were at 1,000 cases a day, and I knew the next day it was going to be 2,500, and I knew the next day it was going to be 4,000, and it was. So, you know, our keys to responsibility are intention, awareness, and confront. So awareness is a hell of a thing when you understand the exponential curve, and the idea of cumulative cases. So for me, it's not a, oh my God, response. For me, that's exactly what's predicted. And if we listen to the Center for Disease Control, what they're calling for is to see when the increase starts to decrease, right? Which is already starting to show some signs in some places in the United States. So let me just speak to that using one of our keys: intention, awareness, and confront, right? So intention, I don't want to freak myself out. Intention, I intend to remain clear-headed and make good decisions for me and those around me, those who I can touch. And I don't touch the government. So I'm not trying to worry about what they do or what changes they make. Awareness, right? I try and look at what I can test empirically for myself and make sense of it and understand it. Confront means, what's scaring me, that I get to face my own fears and ask myself, where's this coming from and what's causing it? So I just want to go back to your family, Hank. If I were in your situation, and I'm not, my household is empty. If I were in your situation, I would probably have conversations using intention, awareness, and confront. So I know that you have a lot of expertise in the responsibility process, and you've been practicing for a while. So I'd have a conversation with my family. Gosh, we all get to be around each other a whole lot more than we're accustomed to. What do we want? What do we want during these times that we have control over? What do we want for ourselves? What do we want for each other? What do we want as a group? If you are familiar with my work on teams and teamwork, this would be like step one. What's our task, right? It's for a family having a conversation or a group having a conversation about being contained in a vessel together called a house, right? What do we want? What do I want? What do you want? What do we want? And all wants are legitimate. Doesn't mean they can all be met, but they are legitimate. So I also wouldn't tell anybody that they can't have what they want. I might tell them, gosh, I don't know how to help you get that. Right? But that's a conversation I would have. And then whether at the same time or a different time, I might have a conversation about, what's our attention on? What's our focus on? What are we aware of? Right? What's the gap between what we have and what we want? So that goes to awareness. I would generate awareness. Just awareness of what's happening around us. And then you might have a conversation about confront. Right? What do we feel uneasy about? And then sooner or later, all three of these just come together when we say, what agreements do we want to make with each other? What household guidelines do we want to set up for this situation? How do we support each other? So I might have those kind of conversations. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Sounds good to me. I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Hank. Absolutely. Who else has a bunch of people stuck in a house together or apartment? Anyone?
Or is anybody feeling isolated?
Well, for me, I have my wife and my child here. One of my kids, he's 19. He's not very much a child. But one of the things I wanted to mention is I always say that there's three things certain in life. There's death, taxes, and change. And the company that I work for now, it's the city utilities, and it's an essential service. And so one of the things that when we went to work remote, one of the things that happened was the three people on my team, including myself, we're accustomed to working remote. The rest of the company really isn't. And so the people on my team, they had their backpacks, they had their laptops, they're ready to go and work remote. But the rest of the company, they had to go work remote. And so it was, okay, how do we do this? And so it's that change part that I think that just is continuous. You realize that, hey, something needs to change. I'm just going to face it and I'm going to deal with it when it comes up, because we didn't have a plan on how to deal with it. So anyway, that's one of the subjects that I think maybe a lot of people are dealing with now.
Absolutely, Damien. And, for me, maybe I'm a broken record this morning, but same thing, intention, awareness, confront. Right? So responsibility is the ability to respond. So it's got to be, for me, it's the essence of change psychology. This stuff happens, it sends me into victimhood. because it seems bad or wrong. It gives me anxiety for whatever reason. My world changes. I'm not in control of my reality. Lots and lots of reasons. So my response is intention, awareness, confront. And it doesn't necessarily start with intention. It can be, oh, I'm noticing I'm not clear-headed because I've got some kind of internal conflict causing me anxiety. I wonder what this is. So I use confront to get awareness. Oh, that's what's going on. Right? I'm not doing my usual thing today. I can't stop by my usual Starbucks on the way to work, and I've got to find a place to work at home, and then I get to, okay, what do I want? What do I want about this mess? And that's why I haven't seen you in a while, Damien, but that's one of the big kicks that we're on lately, is that living in a world of expertise for the last 150 years or so, we've been taught to answer the question, or to ask the question, what should I do when things change or when things go wrong, when things are uncertain? And I'm now very clear that what should I do is not a very growth-oriented question. In fact, it's a question that keeps us below the line. It maps to shame and obligation on our chart. And the way to get above the line in that situation is to ask, oh, what do I want about this mess? What do I want about this upset? What do I want about this situation? And that actually puts us into our creative mind, into our very generative mind.
Right, because I found now our company, people are just coming up with, hey, here's how we should deal with this. Here's a new step to take. Here's how you ought to organize your work site at home, because people don't have a work set up at home. Put some, what are those, your printer paper, get your printer computer so you can see it. Just people are coming up with ideas. And that's what happens during this time. Oh, it should happen, I think, right? Rather than just being overcome by the change and, oh, I don't know what to do.
Right. So that when you're on a Zoom meeting, people aren't looking up your nose at the, because your computer's down here with your webcam, right? You're all doing great, by the way. Look at us. We're all pros for doing the work from home webcam thing. Yeah. Cool. What else is on your minds? Isolated. Susan said, does anybody feel isolated? Nope.
I expected to feel more trapped and isolated, but I've been connecting through the different online channels so much, and everybody's paying attention in social. And I have a whole bunch of people reaching out to me with text and phone calls. So it's often the problems that I fear aren't problems.
Yeah, we're really good at scaring ourselves to death. Absolutely.
Yeah, I had a virtual happy hour on Friday with some associates. Yeah,
fun.
Still do it.
I think one of the things, I don't know if I'm switching topics too much, but you asked what is something else that might be concerning. For me, it's less the isolation and more to your last point about generating creativity during this time. And I think the emotions and thoughts that I'm teetering between are, oh my God, like the terrorizing myself to death, with the thoughts of oh my God, this, all of that. And then wait a minute, the entire world is going through this. Maybe you could be kind and compassionate to yourself to allow that. There is ultimately an innate joy and creativity and compassion and kindness, I think, that's underlying in all of us as human beings. And if I can reattach to that, as opposed to the terror and the scare and the fear, to generate that creativity, but it's that I feared, I feared letting go of the fear, you know, that's kind of where I'm teetering.
Yeah. So you're reminding that the fear, letting go of the fear is reminding me of a number of philosophers have written about most people don't want to be free. They just want to feel safe. In other words, true freedom means you have to take responsibility, and true responsibility means you set yourself free.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us are so accustomed to being controlled by others or our environment or our society or ourselves that we actually fear letting go of that control and allowing ourselves to just be, allowing us to tap in. So Liz, I've been referring to it lately as just tapping into my unique inspiration and my unique genius and trusting that I'm not an asshole.
Right.
I grew up in a society and religions that taught me that I could not trust myself to make choices, that I was not good enough, that I could not think for myself, that I needed to be told who to be and what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been undoing that programming for 20 some years. And that's what we're doing here is we're undoing that programming for each other. So, Liz, I had this feeling that I could completely trust you to make good choices if you totally let go of fear. If you totally let go of control and manipulation. So it's interesting. You started by saying your concern was for creativity, and I was going to ask you what causes you to think that you can't be creative during this time, and then you went from there to self-compassion, and I thought, oh yeah, baby, I'm there. I'm practicing my life of contemplation as much as ever. And then you went to fear, back to, so what makes you think you can't be creative during this time?
I don't think, I think the fear is in embracing that creativity. It's less, I'm actually, there's gosh, you just phrased it really, really well. Your unique inspiration.
And your unique inspiration, yeah.
I feel that, and I think all of us to some extent feel that, and it's almost like it's like waiting to bubble over. But the fear is in letting it, and which is tied to that letting go of who I have programmed to be. Because in every great crisis, there are great opportunities for change and difference, as Damien was mentioning about change. So.
Absolutely. I have a friend who lives in a grass hut. He's a multimillionaire, successful business. He lives in a grass hut in the Philippines, serving an entire district there, trying to bring them out of poverty and bring them out of fear. And he runs a charity. In fact, I was supposed to be visiting him right now before the trip got canceled. I was going to go to Asia to speak at a conference and go to the Philippines and see him. And he wrote 2 lines. He said, our parents and grandparents spent 6 years in world wars. We get to spend a few months at home. So you're right. I think things like this define a generation. So the opportunity for all of us to pivot or be inspired or innovate or make a new contribution is exceptional. Say more, Glenn. Say more.
I love that last comment about we can spend 2 months at home. That's quite beautiful. We're not living through World War I or World War II or any of the other wars that have happened.
No, we're getting along.
Yeah.
My wife's sitting on the other side of the table if you're hearing another voice.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
I heard another voice.
I'm not the sharp dresser that Glenn is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so Liz, what if you let it bubble over?
Who was that directed at?
Liz,
A,
that's back to
a,
Okay.
it's almost, and I'm really, I right now, just for context, I'm really tapping into like what I'm feeling in my body when I think like, what if I did let it bubble over? And it almost feels like I would expand out to such an extent that I wouldn't be able to, quote, get myself back, unquote.
Huh. Well, if that happens, just go hug a tree.
I love that.
Yeah, take your shoes off. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Plant them in the grass and dirt and hug a tree, and you'll get yourself back.
When you say bubble over, Christopher, do you mean her fear or her creativity or both?
I'm just handing her words back to her. She said she was afraid if she let go, it would bubble over. So she said that about 5 minutes ago.
I was talking about creativity, Susan.
Yeah. Yeah, she was talking about creativity bubbling over. And so if you got so creative and so expansive that you couldn't get back to fear, that would be an issue.
That would be a dream. But obviously, I mean, I say that, but obviously it's not a dream where I would just do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for playing. Thanks for,
Thank you.
yeah. I invite you to bubble some, especially, you're home alone, nobody's watching.
Right.
Just you and your spirit and whatever spirits they're connected to. Cool. So what else is going on?
I'll share I'll start with the story. I don't know where it will go.
Okay.
And I said this in the chat a little bit earlier. One of my favorite tools from responsibility process is the notice sooner. Recognizing when there's something creeping in. So I have been noticing sooner a whole lot in the last 2 weeks. And I'm going below the line very frequently. It's like, and probably mostly on scarcity. It's like, oh, I really like that type of food, or I like, these types of dishes, and I can't get them. And to the point that we've built a very long Costco list that we will not action today, which has made me a little uncomfortable, but we've got enough food in the house that we will survive.
Right.
So I've been doing a whole lot of notice sooner. And the one thing that struck me in one of the many video calls that have been out there, this one was from the Agile Alliance, was we will not be as productive when we try to do our work from home. Because there's a lot of other things going on. We're with our families, we're dealing with COVID, we're dealing with scarcity. And I have translated that for myself to, I keep bouncing up or above and below the line. And recognizing that, and it takes me time to kind of get myself back up there again. So I keep going below, and now I'm finding ways to get myself above the line again. And what's helping me go above the line are calls like this one.
Yeah. Thank you, Glenn. Boy, I've got a lot of things that I'd like to visit with you about, but right now I'm not sure I can go into agreement with the Agile Alliance comment. Right.
Wow.
I found myself restating that a little differently, and that is, we won't be as productive when we actually pay attention to priorities in life.
It's quite a different reframing.
Yeah. I mean,
and powerful.
For an industry that teaches sustainability, I don't know many of the coaches who actually practice it.
I mean, Christopher, I know this is your call, and if I might, I would love to understand what they mean by productive. I think if you're finding new ways to spend time with your family, and you're in a healthier space mentally, I question if that's less productive or more productive. I don't. My brain's actually racing through that one as well, Christopher.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get the intent. But I also think, yeah, I also think that part of the gift in this issue is having some of us focus on what trade-offs we make in life so that we can be productive 10, 12, 14 hours a day, or 16, or whatever. I was just going to point out in the book, The Responsibility Process, Glenn's talking about chapter 5, which we call the catch sooner game. Notice sooner is fine because we also have a noticing practice. So the notice, the catch, same thing. And my camera is just not showing this. Interesting. My virtual background could improve. So what the catch sooner game says is that we can change any habit or behavior because it's just cognitions. And our cognitions are not permanent, they can change. And the way the catch sooner game works is just decide some habit or thought pattern we want to change and vow to catch yourself. There you go. Thank you, Hank. Yeah, so vow to catch yourself doing it. So I use the example of donut eating. So I catch myself halfway into a donut. And so then there's a forgive, stop, change step, right? So we have this pattern also in change of saying, well, I've already eaten half of it, I might as well finish it. So our challenge is no, throw it away, right? So stop, change, do something else, pick up the celery, and forgive yourself for actually having patterns that are deep and well programmed and that you don't change immediately. And then vow to catch yourself sooner next time. So next time I might catch myself reaching for the donut and stop. And then the next time after that, I might catch myself all the way across the room looking at the pile of donuts and catch myself and saying, nah, I don't want that. The difference in this way of changing our habits versus what most accountability gurus teach is just one difference. And that is most accountability gurus teach us to punish ourselves when we do what we say we don't want to do. Right? You ate that donut, give me 10 push-ups. Right? And we say forgive yourself, have some self-compassion. What we found is that empathy and compassion for self releases the opportunity for change far more rapidly than does punishment. So punishment sends us to shame. That's below the line. And if you're familiar with the control cycle, it sends us to what we call the control cycle. Yeah, thanks, Glenn. So if you get to Costco, I need some spaghetti sauce.
We have some in our freezer.
Yeah, we've got some in our freezer. You need to be in Ottawa, though.
We have lots in our freezer.
I was laughing at myself when you said that. There's a certain kind of Rouse Aryabhata sauce that I like and I'm out of, and my usual grocery store doesn't have it, and Whole Foods doesn't have it to deliver it, and blah 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 blah. So I get to I get to experiment.
There you go. Opportunity.
All right.
And by the way, your last video that was in the email yesterday, I think, where you said, hey, there could be a troll under that fire hydrant. that was quite lovely.
Cool.
We can make up whatever stories we want. How we choose to deal with them is what really matters.
Yeah, thank you. So Glenn's referring to a little, so I've started a video series, YouTube series called Space. So it's about that space in between stimulus and response. And yesterday's video that went out was on meaning. And the idea is that absolutely nothing has any meaning except that we ascribe to it. So a lot of times I get to ask people who are scaring themselves, what does that mean? How did that meaning get there? How long do you want to hold on to that meaning? What else could it mean? What else could it mean? What else could it mean? Does it have to mean that? Craig.
I just kind of wanted to riff a little bit on the end of the donut story, if it's all right.
Of course.
So, that process of playing the catch it sooner game and recognizing, oh, hey, I want a donut, or I'm reaching for a donut. For me, one of the real aha moments of actually getting power from that was acknowledging, I'm looking at those donuts over there, and my awareness, my catch it sooner triggers and says, I'm not gonna, okay, I'm not gonna eat the donut. I want the donut. I'm gonna recognize that I want that donut, or I wouldn't have had the thought to catch. And I want this other thing more, which is to lose 10 pounds or to be able to run again, or whatever it is that I've stopped eating donuts for. Because it's not just that I'm not eating donuts. I still want donuts sometimes. There's nothing wrong with me eating donuts. I want this other thing more. And that's how I escaped that trap for myself of punishing myself, because it's bad to want the donuts was an easy step for me to take early. And I do want the donut, and I want being healthy and less weight more than the donut. Was a much, again, getting out of that trap of blaming myself for everything that's wrong with me, which nothing's wrong with me.
Yeah, and if we've beaten the donut example too much, we recommend the game for these mental states: blame, justify, shame, obligations. So, like, do one of these a day. Write it on a card. Lay blame on a card, and every 15 minutes or so, or some way, check in. And if you catch yourself blaming, make a note. If you catch yourself having a thought of blame, but you get off of it before it comes out, make another mark on a different side and give yourself 1,000 points for every time you catch yourself and don't take the action. And 1 point for every time it gets out before you realize it. So I realized, Craig, while you were talking about that, and I was trying to think of other examples besides donut eating, is I've had a catch sooner game going on for decades now around using the word but. Right? I agree with you, but. I want to do X, but. Right? I've played catch sooner with the game should. You should, I should. No, I could. I think I might want to. You could. I'd like to propose or suggest that I invite you to. I've played it around the game, the word need, right? They need to do this. And when I check in around awareness on that, I realize, no, they don't need to do that. I have some need that they should do that. Right? Here I'm projecting my need onto them. And then we even do it onto non-human things. That lamp needs polishing. Oh, geez. I'm pretty sure that lamp has no needs. I'd like that lamp. I'd like to take that lamp and have it polished. Have to. It's one of my catch sooners. I have to do this, I have to do that. No, I don't have to do anything. All right, it's close to our done time. I'd love for you to do a couple of things. One is start declaring any wins as a result of this call, or takeaways, or acknowledgments from anybody here that you heard something from them. And if you can, provide us with any feedback about what's been valuable for you about this, or what would you see that we can do for the world right now in the situation that we're in, if we were going to keep doing some kind of broadcast. Any feedback from you? And of course, if you don't already do it, follow and like us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And the company page is Response Pro, RESPONSPRO, Response Pro. So we have room for some verbal takeaways. So who will share something you're taking away from this meeting today?
I like to call out for Confront intention and awareness. That's something that as a novice practitioner, the responsibility process, I sometimes forget. I focus more on the chart and less on the Confront intent and awareness. So thank you for calling that out.
Yeah, if you download the PDF, they're part of the instructions on the back, the 3 keys. You're not seeing that at all. Wow.
It's a fun game you're playing, though.
Trying to get a I think I've got camera problems. I'm trying to get a new camera. All right, who else?
Christopher, I really appreciated the way you talked about building awareness around this problem, and that was the first thing you did. You went to your stats and did the research. And that was really pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
2 things: expanding the catch sooner into should, but, need. Just a few other ways to play that is lovely. And the one phrase that's number 1 from this call is, what should I do? Shift that to, what do I want? Because I always say, what should I do?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Lovely. Who else?
Oh, this is Damien, and so I wanted to go back to the whole idea of working remote, in that many people think that out of sight, out of mind, that you can't trust others to do work because you can't see them. And so I think it's that idea that, hey, I got to trust myself, and I'm going to trust the people that I have put into those roles to do the work that they need to do. And so anyway, it's that whole idea of trust to make good choices.
Yeah. Thank you, Damien. Others?
Just to echo that, the trusting myself first. I want to work. I've been working remotely for a long time. And what I've seen is people want to work. I want to work. I'm not going to let the team down. I'm not going to let myself down. I'm not, so repeating those awarenesses, and then because I'm extending the I don't trust myself to other people, but if I trust myself, I can extend that. So just basically repeating and emphasizing what Damien said.
Yeah, absolutely. I have this little game I play. When I see people who aren't trusting others, I'm wondering what they're doing that's not trustworthy. What they're trying to get away with might be another way of looking at that. Cool. Well, thank you. So thank you, all you beautiful people who are here. I know that you're here because you believe in taking ownership of your life, no matter what situation. And so I appreciate that. The world needs every one of us now that can get ourselves to that mental state and lead ourselves first, so that others might follow us and follow our example, and maybe even follow wherever we're going. So thank you for joining me here today, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day and weekend. And Martin, it must be like the middle of the night where you are. So have a good Sunday or Saturday or whatever it is.
It's 9:30, so it's early yet. So,
9:30 Friday
thank
night.
you.
Okay.
Friday night, yeah. Relaxing, listening to this wonderful seminar. So this chat. So thank you.
All right, Susan,
Great to see
last
you.
word.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you so much.